Recently, my mother told me something that happened to her, along with my father and a couple of other friends, back when they were still studying at the university and dating. They decided to go to a party at a friend of my mother's. The place was the beach, with dunes around, and the friend's cabin was where the party would be. The generator wouldn't start, so they made an improvised campfire, danced around it, and had fun. Everything was normal and quiet until suddenly my mother saw something in the sky. "Look," she said, "two golden stars." They didn't really look like stars, though, more like two fireballs. One was below the other, then began to spin very fast around the lower one until it suddenly stopped. It stayed above the other fireball, then slowly began to go out and stopped. The other fireball, still burning, started to descend and got closer and closer. The people in the cabin panicked and began to run. My mother noticed that one of the boys stumbled and fell behind. She told my father, but at that moment it didn't seem important. The strange thing is that they never saw him again. My mother says he only tripped and fell, falling behind out of sight of the others who ran. Even today she wonders what that thing was and what happened to the boy. Another time my daughter-in-law had just had her first baby. The baby was only a few days old when, around midnight that week, they began to hear strange sounds on the roof, as if something was running on it, scratching the windows. She and my son began to pray, and whatever was outside started to jump and turn much faster. It was terrifying, moving up and down the roof. My son started shouting and cursing, trying to see what was outside, but because of the night he couldn't make anything out. Their pit bulls inside the house began to cry sadly, frightened by the presence. It went on a long time until around 4:30 in the morning, when they heard the windows and the door being ripped and battered again. They prayed until it left. The next day they found all the stained glass panes ruined and the door looked like someone had tried hard to break in. They decided to come live with me for 2 months. Fortunately, and to date, they haven't heard anything strange again. My mother is from a town in Hidalgo called Tellis, in the Guadalupe neighborhood, where my uncle, may he rest in peace, used to live. Every year on August 17th, we'd go see him for his birthday, usually arriving days early to help. One of those days we went to visit another uncle next door. I began playing with my cousins, and the oldest took us to the kiosk around 6 in the evening. We were there a while until her boyfriend arrived. When it was already dark, not even 10 minutes after we had been talking and playing, his younger sister ran up and said, "My father says you should go back home because the witches are walking." She pointed to the hill. When we looked, a ball of fire sat at the top. I didn't believe it at first, but as we watched, another ball ran down the hill a few meters below and went out. We looked back at the hill and the ball that had crashed and extinguished resurfaced and moved to join the other. It frightened us and my cousin rushed us back to his father's house. After a few hours my father and I returned with my other uncle and those lights or fireballs were still there, as if playing, moving from one side to the other. I have never seen that again, but my cousins say there are other balls that slam into the trees on the hill. When people go to look at those trees after hearing the lights, they find the trees as if nothing had happened. In short, strange things happen in that town in Hidalgo. This last story is about an older woman who claims to have had a close encounter with witches. Her name was Alma, and she says this happened one night back in the 70s. She earned a living collecting trash, paper, glass, cardboard, cans, anything she could sell. Near her house there was a dump, a mountain of waste the neighbors were piling up, even though it was in the middle of a wooded area. One day she left late for the dump. A sharp, piercing headache kept her from sleeping, but her need was greater. Using her last strength, she went to the dump and began picking through the garbage. By the time she realized it, the sky had clouded and rain threatened. She was far from home and night was coming. Hoping for a shortcut, she skirted the mountain and entered the forest, guided by instinct, but her short, tired steps couldn't carry her far. Then the rain began, a cold, heavy August rain that soaked her immediately. She trembled and felt like giving up. She tried to shelter under a tree and wait, but she couldn't feel her legs. The pain of rheumatism had overwhelmed her. She closed her eyes and thought of her mother. After so many years, the memory brought a strange kind of comfort. She felt heat, a warmth that made her feel safe. Then she heard a voice calling her. In the trees, a young woman extended her hand and asked her to come closer. She managed, with great effort, and when she arrived, she saw a very large house a few steps away. She didn't understand how she hadn't seen it before. The young woman invited her in. Surprised by their kindness, she entered. The house was beautiful, with wide rooms, wooden furniture, soft cushions, and thick carpets that swallowed your feet. The young woman wasn't alone. 2 other women, equally young and striking, were there. Their eyes were an odd pale green, almost transparent, and their lips were bright red, as if lit by a blaze. Alma was stunned to find such a house in the middle of the forest, inhabited by 3 women barely in their 20s and unnervingly beautiful. They lent her dry clothes, offered coffee, and invited her to dinner. They said they were sisters who had lived there for years. Exhausted, she accepted their offer to stay the night on the condition that she be allowed to wash the dishes and sleep in the kitchen. They agreed. She went to sleep around 10. In the morning she woke sweating. Something was wrong in the kitchen. The rain had stopped and the cold had disappeared, replaced by unbearable heat. She went to see and realized the oven was on. She hadn't heard anything when the 3 girls entered the kitchen and passed over her. Curiosity made her open the oven, and what she saw made her tremble. On a long greasy tray were legs and arms, 6 legs and 6 arms, charred black, smelling of burnt hair. She turned to the window and saw the 3 young women, now without arms and legs, floating among the trees and laughing while playing with a huge ball of fire. She stared, unable to look away. A cold wind rose from her feet up through her body, a chill that clouded her head. Everything began to spin until she passed out. Very early in the morning she woke up at home, lying in her bed, still wearing the clothes the witches had lent her. She refused to go back to the dump or to walk in the forest again. No one believed her, and whenever she told the story she would cry from fear. At the end, with a trembling whisper, she would add, "Be careful, between the trees there are witches."